My name is Lindsay Walls, and I started an organization called Courageous Hearts back in 2013. Hearts is an organization that's really designed around creating a space for young people in particular, mostly middle and high schoolers, to really find a space to express themselves and to find their creative voice, but also find their voice in the world, right? So finding your voice through creativity and art can be a really powerful experience. To have a space where you can hang out and create and maybe find your inner artist, or just have a space to build community with one another, is really what Courageous Hearts is all about. Courageous Hearts offers a few different opportunities for young people. One of them is Open Studio. During Open Studio, sometimes there's really elaborate projects that happen over the course of many visits, and sometimes it's somebody just kind of doodling, and really there's just like a conversation that's happening about the world or high school or whatever is the most relevant thing at the moment. And so Open Studio is a really fun and kind of, I always describe it kind of like a choose your own adventure space. So young people really decide how to be in our space. We don't have a lot of rules. We actually have very few rules other than like clean up after yourself. We've kind of treated it like a Starbucks, where everyone walks into a Starbucks and kind of knows what the rules are, even if they're not posted. And I think that young people aren't always given as much credit as they deserve in terms of knowing how to do the world, and giving them that space to feel some ownership. I grew up in Lake Lillian, Minnesota, and it's a tiny little town in west central Minnesota, and I didn't really realize how much this little town impacted me until a few years ago. And I came back after being in the city for a long time, and just really found so much value in the community that exists here and the ways that people step up and help each other out. And I think Courageous Hearts has been very much influenced by that sense of community and wanting to create that same kind of interconnection and interdependence among people in the big city of Minneapolis. On August 1st, 2007, it was a Wednesday, and I worked at a group home for youth. And so my shift was often, some days it was in the morning, some days it was in the evening. That particular day I had a day shift. I left work about 5:30, kind of took my normal route. Traffic came to a complete stop basically. And I got kind of frustrated at some point, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll try to get off on the exit right before the bridge. I was in the left lane, kind of figured, oh, it's so much work, I'll just stick with it. It'll probably be just as quick as driving through downtown. I got to basically the middle of the span of bridge, and that's when I heard a beam snap. And, it sounded like something dropped. Within a millisecond, my car was doing a nosedive. I just kind of gripped my steering wheel and waited for impact. All of the water came up through the engine and in through the filtration system and up into the cabin of my car at the exact same rate that it was going into the water. So by the time my car stopped moving, I was drowning. My only hope, the only thing I thought might be possible, is that like some windows had broken during the fall. Nothing did. I had to get myself out. I kept pushing, and at some point my body started to gasp for air. I've started to understand that I gulped. Whatever protected me from drowning was I swallowed the water instead of inhaled it. And that happened 3, 4, 5 times. I knew this is it, this is the end. When you're waiting to die, you get all these images of how pop culture says you die. I experienced a flash of light, and I was like, okay, that's step 1, I don't know. And then I started to feel like I was floating. And at first I thought, okay, well that's step 2. I'm dead now. But I didn't feel dead, and I also didn't feel trapped in the way that I'd been trapped. All of a sudden I was free.
The Interstate 35 bridge has collapsed.
Trucks are submerged underneath the collapsed part of
If
that.
not more people inside those
It
cars.
was heavily traveled at that time. That was during the rush hour.
Steel girders gave way somehow.
We have no idea what kind of numbers we're talking about.
Our ongoing live coverage of this major disaster in Minneapolis here in just a moment.
I had to swim about 15 feet from where my car was to climb up onto the island of bridge. I ended up having a broken back. I had to stay in the hospital for 5 days. I had to wear a back brace for about 5 months. And then I just also had really serious PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorders, where I was in, nonstop recovery mode and trying to function like a quote-unquote normal person. I came home from the hospital after that happened with a broken back and a broken spirit in a lot of ways. And I happened to read in a community education flyer, there was a class called soul painting. And the description basically said, just let your soul out. You don't have to be good at it. It's not about technical skill or anything like that. It's just about painting. And I was immediately drawn to that. It sounded like exactly what I needed. And so art's been this thing that it's transformed me. It's the thing that I can step into at any given moment and find out something about myself, rediscover part of who I am, or just tell a different story. I think over the years of painting, I've potentially gotten a little bit better at it, but that's not what it's about for me. I'm not painting to put them on my walls, though sometimes I do. I'm painting to explore the depths of who I am. I think that's a really profound thing to offer to other people. I think we live in a world where creativity becomes inaccessible to too many people, and I think everyone needs to know that they have a right to be creative and that there are thousands of ways to show up and be a creative person, and that it can be so nourishing to who you are as a person.
Visit pioneer.org/postcards to catch up on missed episodes and to find out more about your favorite segments. This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yackel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. Live Wide Open, a regional movement that encourages people to make a great life for themselves in west central Minnesota. More at livewideopen.com. Alexandria, Minnesota, a year-round destination with hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for memorable vacations and events. More information at explorealex.com.